And I'm very excited for our very next special guest. The next special guest is an accomplished Twitch music streamer and songwriter, known not only for moving smoothly between relaxing melodies to noise to everything in between, but also somehow managing to be in every music stream that is ever happening anywhere on the planet. Besides Twitch, you can also find her performing live music throughout the Boston area and furthering synth music outreach as an admin for the Golden Shrimp Guild. In her spare time, she's also a world-famous geographical investigator, having been promoted to sleuth from Gumshoe by Chief Lynn Thigpen after her successful capture of the international criminal mastermind Carmen Sandiego. She's also a master sword fighter, having vanquished foes in villages near and far, and her new memoir, Hips Don't Lie, I Took an Arrow to My Hip and All I Got Were These Robotic Replacements, is available in bookstores everywhere. So please, everyone, join me in giving a warm welcome to TotoRobyn.
I'm dying.
Let me get my camera on, too, because my camera's not working. But hey there!
Hi there. I'm making you my marketing manager from now on.
You should. Hold on, I'm going to turn my camera off here because apparently mine's decided it's not going to work through the guest thing. I might have to, I'll do it differently. Hey, good to see you. Thank you for joining.
Thanks for having me.
It's absolutely my pleasure. How's your day going?
Good. Oh, is my sound low? Hold on a second. Let's see if I can.
Your sound is low. Let me see if I can bring you up here. I can bring you up a bit. I just 200 you here. 200 you here.
I'm always having to adjust my microphone depending on stream. So sometimes it's like need it softer, sometimes louder. So I'm always fixing. So let me know if this works okay.
Okay, cool. And I basically like have all sorts of filters on mine. And when I put trying to figure out the browser sources for the audio, I didn't really get the limiters and stuff turned on for this because I was just kind of throwing it together because yesterday my Amazon got stolen. Hey, Robyn. So yes, but I meant every word of that. It's actually really fascinating. Let's just jump right in because I have so many questions for you. Again, thank you for being here. But it is fascinating. Like you have become kind of this online presence in every Twitch stream, but also you're having this real world presence as well. And is this a newer thing, or have you been doing this for years?
No, I still laugh at the timeline of all this because again, as I'll say to people, I've only picked up my first synth maybe 3.5 years now. So I've always been surrounded by music, but actually making my own music is relatively new compared to all the people around me. And I still just get mind blown that people want to listen to music and actually put in effort to show up at various times of the day. I'm don't you have a better it's it's a nice day outside, go out for a walk or something. I don't know.
that's really that's you're don't you have something better to do than to come listen to me? That's shouldn't we be concerned about that? Robyn?
There's more times where I will just be I don't want to stream because there's so many good people on. I'm I don't want to put in effort. I just want to listen to everybody else. Can I just prolong this or do this another day or something? Because
we're gonna come back.
Great content out there, and I just love it. It's great.
Yeah, we're gonna come back to that point in a little bit about how the fact that you are everywhere, everything everywhere all at once is you basically. But yeah, so the live, it's interesting because watching what you're doing in the Boston area, and it's ambient, but also synthesizers and all of that. It seems like you are having a bit of a synth renaissance in that area that we're not having just literally how many miles south in New York City. It seems like the community there is much more tight knit.
It's interesting. But Boston works weirdly in the sense of synth music in Boston is not prevalent in the sense that I'm sure a lot of people would like it to be. I mean, I think Boston is still traditionally known as rock place or everything. I always get bummed out by I love jazz music a lot, and
yes.
I wish there was more of a jazz presence and to get a lot of jazz artists to come. They'll move up to they'll tour and they'll go as high up as New York, and they're nah, we're good with New England, and it's come on, man, I don't have the ability to just zip down, the train at like on a Tuesday night to see your performance and come right back up for work. So when it comes to synths, it's like that presence has been around for a long time, but it's definitely been like kind of like very close knit community, very kind of quiet. And I think, as with anything else, I think with the pandemic, it's allowed people to like find things better to do with their lives and kind of like venture into synths and stuff. And I think what's made a noticeable impact in like the local synth community in like the Boston area is that like originally there was like a meetup group that was kind of labeled the Boston Modular
Mm-hmm.
synth group, and like I have friends of mine that have attended that, and like I've always wanted to go see one, but I also was like, it's too technical for me, or I don't fit in, or whatever like that. But like about, I don't know, like a year or two ago, they actually opened it up because they didn't mean to purposely be like, it's only modular, like
Mm.
anybody's welcome. So they actually changed the titling to be modular and synth. And I think that really opened up people to be like, oh, okay, I could just come in with, this groove box or this, certain keyboard and be able to express my music. And it doesn't have to be strictly modular. And I think that's helped with bringing a lot more people into that. And then I think there's just been a push lately to try to find small venues, both in like the Boston area and especially in Providence, Rhode Island. There's like attempts in both places to try to make more of a presence with different types of genres. Like you see a lot of
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
techno, and that's usually still like the flavor of what will be able to make people come to venues. But people are trying to find like things where like, okay, ambient music, can we have it in like an artist loft where people
Mm.
could go and like bring sleeping bags and like comfy chairs and just like have visuals like on the ceiling of a church or a loft or something. So I
Yeah.
think the area has been trying to be good at creative ways of giving opportunities. It still, I think, has a way to go, but I think the attempts are really good, and I think it's allowing people to like tap into more people that wouldn't catch that otherwise live.
I find that really interesting about Boston and jazz because I would have thought that it was actually bigger than New York for that. But I guess it makes sense. See, I mean, you got to remember when I was a wee lad, it was Berkeley, and like that was one of the jazz schools the Berkeley. You had Eastman for your masters, you had Youngstown State, you had Western Michigan, and the University of North Texas. And that was kind of it. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. And now
Berkeley is
it's
so well known, but yeah,
yeah, but it's
it's like you
gone to
have all those
modern
people there,
music
but then
so
they
much.
go
Yeah,
elsewhere.
yeah. And it's got their digital music program. I remember when they started that in the '90s. It makes sense now that it's not necessarily when you think jazz now, you're not necessarily thinking Berkeley anymore. But that's interesting. But I find your journey fascinating. And side note, Scott did mention that he figured out how you do it. You have that CNN wall with like 12 streams all at once. I knew
Yeah.
it. Your electric bill must be crazy, Robin.
Actually, it's funny you say that because, like, as I've been teased about it, that I have some type of like Totes Central, like where I like screens everywhere. And the funny thing is, like, in front of me, my monitor is like an ultra widescreen monitor,
Yeah.
and it's not even for music purposes. Like back in the day, I used to for many years do tax preparation as like my side gig, and it was a lot easier over time instead of having dual monitors. Be like, or I could just have one really long one and have all the things up I need to. And that's come in really handy now for streaming. So
Yeah.
it's like, oh, all of the things are here. And yeah, so it's a running joke for sure.
Or like in my old setup, you remember the old where I had the ultra wide and then the other monitor next to it as well. Still, it's
Yeah.
like not enough. No, I find your journey absolutely fascinating. Your music journey absolutely fascinating. Like having gone streaming, done electronic, and watching you in real time in some cases, because like many people on Twitch, you're not sitting. You're not saying, this is what I do. I'm pretty much there. I'm just going to do it all the time. You're constantly improving. You're constantly adding new things, learning new things, and taking yourself out of your comfort zone on the daily, it seems like. Yeah, it's like, is that how you kind of approach everything you do? You just try to get yourself out of your comfort zone to just kind of get yourself a little scared, or you like to sit sometimes?
A mixture. I think a lot of it is I'm one of those people who likes trying different things, and like that's not just applicable to music. It's like I'd be that person coming out of college or even like certain stages of adult life. It's like I love, for instance, like adult education schools, because it's like, I love how it's like you could do this thing where like learn how to give massages, learn how to do this craft, learn how to cut, do proper, cutting of your food, and like do
Learn
this
how
from
to
anywhere
be a
from like
sword
1
fighter.
to 8 weeks. Yeah, funny, I haven't found that in an adult ed class yet, but maybe that should be, honestly. Learn how to fence your opponent. But it's like I love opportunities like that, because like you can book like a small portion of your time for like a couple of weeks. You go and do this thing, you did something new, and you don't have to like fully commit to like a lifetime of it, because we're adults, things change. It's like, you might be interested in this thing, but you may not want to put like the full amount of effort, or sometimes it just feels like work, and then you need to step back to be able to appreciate the art that you were interested in before it became a job.
Yeah.
So when it comes to my music, like in general, I love just about all genres of music. There's very little I don't like. I'm like myself, I'm not the biggest into like hardcore rap and really like twangy country. I appreciate the efforts of it. It's just not usually the thing I will like automatically go to. But outside of that, I'll listen to anything or everything. Someone could say,
I saw that
try this
comment.
concert and let's go. And I'm like, I'll try it once. I may not go back to it again, but it's like, but I might find something that is like, oh, they do this really well, or I would have never have guessed that. Now I need to listen to more of their discography. So I kind of take the same way with my music. It's like, I want to be able to learn how to do different things. I will readily admit, and I'll say on stream, I'm not good at all the things. I joke all the time, I do techno 3 or 4 times a year, and that's for the best that it only gets to be 3 or 4 times a year. I'm not terrible at it, but I'm never going to be a pro. I leave that to the experts. And when I do stuff like that, I will joke all the time saying like, all right, this is my exploration for today. So it gives people like the idea of like, don't expect a highly polished stream. It's not going to happen. You want that, go elsewhere. But I just there are some people who I admire them, and like they are solid at the type of genre that they do, and they do it so well. I don't come from that. So it's just like, for me, it's like, well, I'm coming from beginnings of I'm learning how to do all this from scratch, and I don't want to limit myself. Like when I first started doing music, it was more dancey, it was more percussive, which is definitely a shift from where I am now, where most people who listen to my music usually put it as ambient, sometimes down tempo. That's usually the bucket. But I don't want to be that bucket all the time, especially in real life, performances. Like I don't want people to think, oh, we can't include her in this thing because she only does ambient. So I'm forever trying to dabble with like, here's more industrial, here's more noise oriented, just things to kind of like do something different and make it fresh, because I feel like you get really tired if you play the same ambient stuff twice a week, every week for how many years?
Yeah.
Some people it's fine. It doesn't work for me. It gets stale. That's why I like Twitch and everyone having different genres. Like everyone who's in the chat that plays music, I love going to all their stuff because there's a different thing. It changes things. It makes it fresh. And I just want to do the same thing with my music as well. I
don't know if you were in when Mitchell and I were talking about that. That I'd gotten advice from my brother to focus my genre. Because I started Luquado when I was like 16, so like almost 30 years ago now. And it was like kind of techno-y, 90s techno-y type of stuff. And then I did a trance album, and then some remixes, a trance album like around 2003, 2004. Then I did a holiday album. Then I did like a jazzy piano-y, like chill piano-y. Then I did a piano pop, like Billy Joel, Ben Folds 5 album in 2012, which you will not find on any streaming services. It will be coming back in some form. It'll be coming back at some point. Then another holiday album. And then I did a relaunch in 2020. My brother's like, you gotta people need to know what to expect. I thought maybe the chill piano and the piano pop was probably a little bit too far. But I'm like you that I don't want to be necessarily boxed in. And I worry about that. So you and I talked about this, I think, in Chicago when we met in person. Which, by the way, folks, Robyn is literally everywhere on Twitch, yes, but in person might be even cooler in person than on stream, which is kind of hard to imagine, but it's the honest truth. But yeah, so like we met in Chicago, that I was concerned I was going to get boxed into being like the pretty melodic ambient guy. And I'm like, I had literally never done that before I streamed on April 19th last year. That was my first time doing that in my life. And so that wasn't necessarily where my passion lied, but I like it. You know, I do enjoy it. So I feel that in my soul. Like, I worried about that a lot. Like, it was a big thing the first time I brought the drums in, and it didn't quite work. And then I think you were in that stream when that happened. You were.
I probably was.
The Bring the Beat Back stream, I'm pretty sure. And then like the synth on where it was like, okay, that was when you were like, yeah, you got drums. We get it, Luke. like you have drums. We understand. So I hear that. And that being said, your particular genre, which I guess you could call almost like dream tempo.
I like that. I'm telling you, you're being my marketing manager. I'm adding that now.
Yeah, it's because it's like dream step meets down tempo. It's this like trip hop or dream hop almost. Like, it's almost like that, you know. But you can also do the noise. You know, we've heard you do all of these genres. Are there any genres that you haven't yet explored, that you have on your bucket list that you want to try to get into?
I mean, sure. I mean, there's definitely things I'd like to do, and it's just a matter of, I guess, taking the time to learn stuff. Like, I love like dance and trance music. Like, I could, for instance, there's a reason I love, like, when I wake up in the morning and say 302 Dave is on, and it's like I get my 90s style fix of dance music that like I don't find any other streamer on, like, in the Shrimp Guild or in Twitch that does like that kind of music live.
No.
And I love music like that. Like, that's the kind of music I like will, in my college years and everything, go to the dance clubs and go listen to that stuff and dance till, like, you know, they basically shut down because earlier than anywhere else, because why Boston? We can't be as cool as New York or anyone else. We gotta shut our, you know, T system down by 12:30 or 1 a.m.
Yeah, we gotta make it the dunk. We gotta get the dunk and get that coffee.
So I would love to do more like that kind of stuff, but it's like, it's having to know how to do the drum fills, how to do the focus groups, how to do this, and it's like, can I do it? I'm sure I could, but it's one of those things that I'd have to carve out a lot more time to learn how to do that in a way that I feel would sound good.
Yeah.
And I feel like, okay, on bucket list for maybe a year or two down the road when things calm down in my life, aka when is that?
Yeah, when's it gonna happen, right?
But yeah, I'd say like that's a really good example of like, I would love to do more of that, because I think I could, but it's just the time and effort would just be so long that I'm like, well, in the meantime, I could just be doing music that's a little easier for me to work with.
Yeah, that is kind of an interesting, and that kind of brings up an interesting question, an interesting point of discussion is like, the other thing that Mitchell and Dan, like we've all talked about, it's been a very common theme today on these chats, has been, you know, making the music that you want to have exist in the world versus making the music that you want to exist in the world versus what you aspire to doing versus what people want to hear. And the delicate balance of being an entertainer is juggling all of those things. And I tend to err on the side of like, I'm going to make what I'm going to want to make, what I want to have exist. I think you do too. I think everyone I've talked to today all kind of tends to err on that side. But we all know streamers, and I'm not throwing any shade, but we all know streamers that like their whole shtick is like giving the people exactly what they want and like catering to their listeners. And it's just a different philosophy to entertainment in some ways. Like I guess kind of like being an entertainer versus an artist, and we try to straddle both, you know? What do you think about that?
No, it's valid, and I think a lot of it depends on like also like what is your focus with your music, with being an artist. Like for myself, I'm sure I come from a much different place than most artists out there, because like I still don't even call myself an artist. Like that's still like I still struggle with like calling myself an artist or a musician, because in my head I'm like, this is just a fun thing I get to do in my free time. It's like but it's like I have like I work at a bank. I'm like business oriented. I like have thankfully over the years I've been able to establish myself, so I have a steady job and career and whatever. So I'm not in the position that I sympathize for those people where like making music is your full-time job, and so you more so need to focus on like not just what you like to do, but like unfortunately if I want to hit mainstream or anything close to that, like how will I reach these people that like my music? So I sympathize with that, and I'm lucky enough I don't have to worry about that as much, though we all do that dance in our head where we're like, oh, well, if I did this, I'd get this many more followers. If I
Yeah, yeah,
stream this much longer, I do this. And we all do that to some degree. And I know I see myself catching myself into this. I'm like, no, because at the end of the day, I'd rather, like, if there was 5 people in my stream and they're just interacting and enjoying, then it's already been a win. So for me, I want to primarily put music out that I think represents me at whatever snapshot of like my creative journey. I'm not going to
yeah,
throw
yeah.
something that's like pure schlock, but I'm not also going to make it perfect either, because
No,
again, the goal isn't to be like, I need to sell this many albums or I need to
right.
do this. I think I do is more like, I want to show range of the things that I like and what I do. Like if you look at like the first album I came out, that is a completely different vibe than the most recent album I did. Like the
Mm.
first one like used like SH 1A, I think, and
Oh
like
yeah,
it had like, it was a very industrial dance like
yeah.
feel to it, had a lot of percussion. It definitely showed like the youth of starting things out. And then that jumped to pretty ambient, and then that jumped to darker ambient
Hmm.
and exploratory stuff. So each album is a completely different album, because we're in the stage of things I like I'm in the zone to doing. But I also want to be like, it can't be a purely ambient thing. There's got to be something with drums. So there's gonna be this, just to kind of
Hmm.
give people like it's not just this. Here's other things I do, and I think as long as my music does that, it makes me happy. And if people like it, great. And if not, that's okay. Because at the end of the day, I'm just supposed to be doing this to enjoy it.
Yeah, that's true. Steggy has a good point that you want to make art that is true to yourself, but you also want people to relate and enjoy your work. You know, you've heard me say this, Robin, a lot, Totes. You've heard me say that, like, it's it's music and art. If you make it, as soon as you create it, it exists, but it doesn't get elevated until it connects with people somehow. But the question is, you know, like, what do you want to do with it? And it's interesting, like you said, about like that moment in time. Something else that Mitchell and I talked about, that my brother used to say that you release an album, you release a single or a show, it's a frozen moment in time of who you were as an artist at that point in time. You know, that's who you are. Just that's it, and you're going to have to learn to live with its warts and all, and just move on. So, hey, Mr. X, thank you so much for the resub. Yeah, that's a really interesting way of looking at it. Absolutely.
I like what Mitchell said earlier, where
Yeah.
it's like it's really good to realize if you leave too much time in, like, especially like the album producing process, and it's like, if you start off like, this is what I'm going to do, and like you let 6 months go, 6 months from now you're doing totally different music. I know I did that with my last album, where like I had like this kind of like folder in my server that's like, okay, here are potential things, and then when trying to go back to it, I'm like, oh no, I don't do that now, or oh, I have a completely different feel.
Yeah,
Like I
yeah,
may have
yeah.
loved that song then, but I don't now. So it's having to come to grips where I agree with him. It's like, you just got to like put a line and be like, here, we're stopping here. What do you like? Take these, go with it. And then if you want to explore the other stuff, put it on later on. Like choose it later, but you can't
Yeah.
keep just like moving the goalposts.
Oddball says my problem is that I save it and come back and then hate it. Well, I mean, that'll happen too.
I've done that too.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I took a couple of songs off my last album because I'm like, nah, not feeling
That's
that now.
normal.
And that's okay. And I liked it for when it came out. I don't feel it serves a purpose there, and that's fine.
Oh, Waiting at the Tide, the thing that we're listening to at 9 p.m., that's an album that I released under a different name, Conspiracy of Violet, it was called, this project. That was the first song on that, one of the songs on that, the language that's in it, the invented language I wrote when I was like 13. One of the songs on there I also wrote when I was 13. It came out in 2017, so that was 24 years later. But the album itself got started in 2010. It didn't come out for 7 years because I wasn't there yet. So that was the thing. I don't know if you do this too. I have so many things where I come up with the songs and then I put them on the shelf because I'm like,
Yep.
I don't have the time, or I'm not there as an artist yet. This is really important, and I'm going to be precious. Like, I have certain things I'm going to be precious about, and I'm going to put it on the shelf until I'm ready to do it properly. Otherwise, I'll do other stuff. You know what I mean? So that was Waiting at the Tide was one of those things that was on a shelf for 7 years, basically, before I could come back and do it right. You know. I don't know if you're nodding your head.
I mean, my journey is shorter, so I can't say I've left something for
Okay.
years. But I can. Well, what I can say is like yes, there's ones there's like definitely songs or explorations that I've like shelved to come back later because it's like I can't figure out how to finish it or I'm just not quite there. But then there are tricks that kind of force me and like I know like Mr. X is in there in chat can speak to the same thing. It's like when you have certain challenges like RPM challenge, like record production ones, like that's I feel is like the best opportunity to kind of like put a fire under your ass and be like, okay, by the end of this month, you need to produce something. And it's like they'll even like hint. It's like it doesn't have to be perfect.
Yeah, they do say that.
Your first thing, it's just like it's. I always find it's good when someone kind of like when someone sets a thing for you that you're like, oh, now I have a responsibility. This is due by this because someone else has set that marker. Versus if I do it for myself, it's like I've already else got deadlines. It's like work deadlines unfortunately come before music deadlines.
Yes,
it's like so this can get put off, but it's again, it's a balancing act for sure.
The other thing that'll light a fire under your ass, of course, is the burn. No.
Reasons I don't have any, redemptions that allow me to have hot sauce.
No, you just have the Carmen Sandiego one that I abuse.
Yeah, I still regret that. Trust me. That is an example of you do things to make your audience happy, not necessarily that it's for you.
That's true. Absolutely true. So, yes. So, I told you I had like 1,000 questions for you, and I still do. So, I'm always in your streams. I'm always amazed, even if you might be internally screaming and panicking. Like, I am always amazed at how put together what you're doing is. And I wonder, this is like, I need to pick your brain. Like, how much are you rehearsing? How much are you preparing? And how much are you winging it? Like, what would you say is your process for getting ready for just a bog standard week of streaming? Not, the 27 special events you do per day.
It's more like 25 now.
You dial it down a little bit. That's good. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The new job is means I can only, do like 5 raid trains in a week.
Simultaneously. Yeah, absolutely.
So it's changed over the course of the last like 3+ years. Again, I'm coming at this where like most people who are around here, you all have been doing this for decades, and I've only been doing this for a couple years. I don't have like for those of you who don't know, like I have no music theory background. I have not gone to school for music. I have not. I always joke that I'm music adjacent. It's like I've been a dancer for most of my life, so I've always had music while I'm doing ballet, point, jazz, tap. So I've always had music influence and kind of syncopation from that element of things, and then just been around people who have been very, heavily into music. So for me, I like, especially in the beginning, like I would prepare like everything in advance. It's like, because I'm a newbie, I don't want to scare people away, even though this is not going to be the quality of music compared to going somewhere else. So a lot of the early streams would be kind of like, prepare this music in the background, practice it enough, and then have like the combination of playing the music but engaging with the audience. Some of you who have known me from the beginning, the titling of my Twitch channel, it was actually called Swords and Synths, because I wanted to try to find a way to pull people in, because I'm like, I'm not as knowledgeable about the synths yet. And I'm like, I don't think someone should stay here for this channel just to listen to my music. So I'd infuse like my other passion, which is historical sword fighting,
right,
and like do a balance of that. But in those times, because I was new, like I would spend, a few hours, prepping for a 1-hour stream. I see you, Mr. X. Yes.
we see that.
Yeah.
And there could also be a lot of creativity there too. Like, are we going to get synthesizer music, or is Toto going to behead somebody? Like, we don't
right,
really know.
Exactly. Find out, and because like the ratio of it could change at any time in a stream.
Yeah.
So the early, especially the first year of streaming, was very much everything's prepared. There's a lot more dialogue back and forth with people, because I'm trying to, like, what I lack in synth knowledge and experience, I can make up for in like connection and community building. But I've also had this conversation with Mitchell too, that sometimes it's striking a balance of, if this is a music channel, how much of it do you want to talk
Right.
versus how much do you want people to be able to listen to music and not have your voice distract.
Gosh, I
And
really
so
struggle with that myself.
it's still a work in
Yeah.
progress. And it's like one of the things I do right now is like, I'll choose depending on the type of raid train, the type of stream of element, like, is this going to be a mic day? Is it not going to be a mic day? And then making sure I like notate, expectations of the stream of, this is going to be this kind of vibe. So that way, if you don't want to hear me talking a lot, go to another stream. Or if you want to listen solely to music as you're doing something, this stream will do that. Nowadays, going back to your original question, I do less prep now. I think a lot of it depends on what the focus of like the stream is. Like my usual times I stream, the Tuesday periods, that one's more relaxed, loosey goosey. That one, sometimes I will not plan anything. So like a recent thing which I took to my most recent, like, there's a local synth meetup, and I did this for yesterday's meetup. It's like someone locally dared me to like not use the deluge for anything. If anyone knows me.
It's good.
The
Good
deluge
dare.
in one essence or another gets used
Right.
in some format, and it wasn't Mr. X that did this either. It was actually someone locally here.
Oh, okay.
So I like taking challenges if they're within reason. If someone's like, "Hey, try this," if I can make it work, I'll totally do it. Because again, that's where creativity comes into play. So what I did is I set up my modular rig, and I normally use the deluge to sequence notes through it. So what I did instead is I used a noise generator and a contact mic, and I did all of my music using those. So there's no need for a sequencer. There's no need for sequencing modules. And I just did a purely like improv. It's like I don't do enough pure like 1 hour improv streams or anything like that, but I'm working towards that.
Okay.
And so some things are like this, where it's like purely in the moment, and Tuesdays kind of give me that comfort level of just like going with the flow. More structured things that are like higher profile Twitch festivals or whatever, what I'll do is I'll structure like bass lines of certain songs. So I might be like, okay, here's, so many lines of this synth voice to start off with. And then in time, I'm going to build them on stream so I continue to go through. So there might be like, here's a bass line of this, like 4 different types of synth voices in a drum kit. And then I'll like add like, multiple lines as I'm going through. I'll tweak effects as I'm going through. So I've gotten much, much better at that. So there's less prep time than it was in like the first year.
That's really interesting. And you're getting more and more comfortable, it sounds like, with just like winging it, like and just kind of having a great old time while you do it.
It's gotten better. It's not perfect. I still get. I'm just like so many other people. Like, I get anxiety. I get butterflies in my stomach, and it doesn't matter how minimal or how often I practice a song. It still is like, and it's like I get more of that now, like performing in like person to people where I actually see them staring at me, which it's a lot easier when you don't have people looking at you when you scream. They could be making a horrible face. You don't know that. It's like they could be like, it's like I wouldn't know unless they're typing it out in chat and being like, I'm making a funny face at you right now. It's like, that's great, thanks. But it's like in person, it's like that's like so scary to be like, oh gosh, I can see people's reactions if they hate you, so they walk away or whatever. It's like, why did I sign up for this BS?
I mean, again, if you've got like a double-handed longsword, no, like
usually most places don't allow you to bring that. With you,
the audience won't sneer at you then.
No, they'll just be terrified of you. Yeah,
I find that so interesting though. It's because I mean, my life is chaos. Probably as much as anyone else's, maybe more, depending on the move and all that stuff too. But I've never once been able to feel properly rehearsed, except maybe part of 808 Fest, my first 808 Fest last year. I mean, the only one that only part of it I could feel even remotely like I'd had a chance to go once through at least one of the songs. Otherwise, I'm throwing it together super last minute, and you've seen me in like the Discord being like, I'm sorry, I'm probably going to shit the bed, but it's type of thing. And then it's fine enough, but it's never as good as I wanted it to be type of a thing, because I'm coming from a world where I used to play in bands. I mean, I didn't go to college for music either, but it's just like I've been playing it for so long. We used to rehearse. That's what we did. We would practice because we'd go put on a show and people would be paying money to come see us, and we wanted to have it be great. So honestly, it's improvising lots of times for me is like a warm blanket, because it's just like whatever the hell it's going to be, and I don't have to worry about messing up because it's being improvised, you know?
No, that's a good point. And it's like I run into this horrible habit now probably for the past year, is that any in real life performances, what happens is I'll go and I'll prepare, and most of the things I do, like, again, tend to be ambient down tempo. Like, I will, like, again, I'll sometimes switch it up, but a lot of, like, the things that I'm, like, hired to do that I get paid for is like, in that realm of things. So I'll, like, prep, like, this is kind of the direction I'm going to go with this. I'll set it up. The habit I've done the last number of months now is literally anywhere from 1 to 5 days before the event, I no longer like that song and throw it out the window, and then I have to build something from the beginning. Every effing time. This is what I've done. And it drives me to drink because I'm like, why are you doing this to yourself? It's like, you don't have the time for this bullshit. Like, don't you have like a job or something you gotta focus your life? But it is like, I think the last one, this one even takes cake, or like the last one had a song prepped. Threw it out the window, built another one, and then the day before threw that one out, went back to the original one, but like tore up like 3 different like sections of it, and I'm like, nope, not using this one, I'm gonna use this one, I'm gonna use, it's like, why? That doesn't help with your anxiety.
Why are you doing this to yourself?
Can't you just like what you do? No. So, you know, it's like I add my own butterflies upon butterflies.
Oh, yeah, that'll do it. I can totally see that.
So it's just like, so that further adds it's improvised, because I don't even know what the day that I'm showing up, what song I'm doing at this point, because I've tried 3 different songs and I don't know which one I like.
That's hilarious. That is very familiar. I guess I got really spoiled. You know, we have the holiday singers, you know, you heard them on the stream. When we do that stuff, like, they were terrified about that because I gave them a pool of songs from the songbook, and I'm like, it could be any one of these, because I was improvising the show as I went, and I didn't know where we were going to end up. They were like, what are we doing? You know, because most of them had never gigged with me, because I'll change the set list on the fly. But we have 63 songs to choose from. But that's it. 9 times out of 10, though, when a client books us and they pick their set list, they pick the set list, and using the tool that I built, and we don't deviate from it. We might skip something for time, and that's it.
But you're structured. You know what.
Very structured.
Yeah. So it's easy to prep for it.
Whereas for me, live, live performance, I haven't done this. To be fair, I've never done this type of stuff live. Partially, you've seen, how the hell am I going to take this anywhere? It's not, no, it's not going to happen. But feeling the energy coming off of the crowd, that's nice. See, for me, that's that's also very comforting. It's like, any of the times that I've had to do live stuff in front of a lot of people or TV and stuff, it's like my nerves never set in. I got more nervous, and friends can attest to this. Confession time. For my first 2, 3 synthons, I was more nervous than I was to be live on Good Morning America. The first time even, yeah.
No, I get that. The first one I did, I had to go after Bleep Temple. I'm like, I still blame Actitech for that scheduling. I'm like, why would you put one of the best like synth techno artists out there? Why would you put me after that? What is wrong with you? This is what I wanted to say to him. I'm sure I have said it to him after the fact. When
maybe you're right. Maybe it was a good move.
But it's just like, it's the same thing where it's like, what? No, what? And it's like, well, maybe everyone will be sleeping by then, because it's like, like 11 p.m. on a Friday night or something. Yeah. I don't know. But yeah, no, it's like those scenarios that you think, oh, this shouldn't be, and it's like double the anxiety. It's the worst.
So let's talk a little bit about the nature of creativity. Let's dig into this kind of stuff.
Okay.
By the very nature of your, what do we call it? Dream tempo. By the very dream tempo, dreambient, the dream tempo. By the very nature of your dream tempo music, a lot of it is interval based. You have a lot of like boom 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 boom. You have a lot of intervalistic bells and things like that, interspersed with like the types of drums you use, the bass lines and stuff like that. And so, do you how do you approach that? Do you discover that, like, you sit down at your deluge and you find like a riff that you like and you build off of that, or is it like sometimes you'll just be kind of like la 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 boom, oh, like you hum it to yourself? Like, what's your approach to structuring and coming up with some of these ideas?
Oh, that's a really good question. Actually, I don't think anyone's asked me that. So back when I first started, it was all percussion driven. So it would be when I start creating a song, I would do all of the drum lines first and create all like the sequences and patterns and fills with that. And then once I'd be done with that, then start figuring out what synth voices would go to layer that. That's obviously shifted to the other end of the spectrum now.
Right,
So
right.
what tends to happen is I am that person who I've got it's bad too because it's like I like I have an Innovation Summit. I love this thing to death. I lately I have not used it enough because it's like it's the whole like analysis paralysis. Like when you have so many synths and so many different voices, and then it kind of gets overwhelming. Like
I don't know what you
in
mean at all.
yeah, no, I'm sure you don't.
I
It's like this deluge alone like has like hundreds and hundreds of presets. It's like I can spend, and I have totally done that, where I will spend a good like hour or so like searching for a thing. But that's literally what I do. Is I kind of like I'm more so like what type of genre or feel or mood am I interested in, and some of it's influenced by how my work week is going. Some of
hmm.
it's influenced by am I prepping for a particular event or something like that. So I might be like, okay, I'm going to do a dark ambient composition. So then what I start doing is I just kind of just basically scroll through my synth patches and
Mm.
kind of find like let's find like a starter voice that's going to lead things off and that's going to create a mood. So I'm like, okay, one of the songs I've done recently, one of the things that people highlight is like I have a synth voice that's very cello sounding, which is not a voice you find regularly in a lot of synths that does it well. And I've like had musicians be like, how do you get that from a groove box? Like that sounds like somebody performing, in an orchestra. And so that's already creating a setting by having like a cello kind of string through, slowly dragging through, creating a mood. I'll do a couple of lines with that. And then what I'll do is let me start trying to find voices that complement that. So I'll find something else that I'm like, okay, here's something that might be a little twinkly to kind of bring it slightly out of that dark mood and give some glimmer of hope. And then play them against each other where they can both play well together, but they can both stand on their own. Because then it allows like the mood to stretch out for a longer period of time, which I think is needed in ambient. It's like you can have a pad go forever and
Yeah,
ever.
yeah,
As
yeah,
long as you're varying how it sounds, you can make that thing last for an hour.
yeah.
It might get boring to some people, and that's fine. But it's so that's kind of what I do. Is like I'm usually start off with one source that creates a mood, then try to find something that complements it, whether with tension or like whether it plays in very nicely with it. Work on that for a couple of levels, and then I'm going to add another one. Sometimes the fourth voice I add in may not go well with the first one, but with all of them built together, create some type of harmony or conflict or something. And so that's kind of how I go about the process, is just like one thing at a time.
That's very interesting and very similar to what I did for years. Patch timing. Like I'm a terrible synthesist. In the sense that I see some of the folks in the guild, especially in modular and stuff like that, that are these incredible synthesists. They're great at creating patches from scratch or anything like that. I can probably count in 30 plus years of messing around with synthesizers, the amount of patches I've made from complete scratch on maybe four hands, if I had four hands, in that long. I'm much more of a here's a cool patch, edit. That's much more of my go-to than anything else.
Yeah.
But you're right. It's the same thing. It's like you're scrolling through your patches and you hear something and you're like, that's evocative, and you do a thing with it, and like, oh, there it is. And then I'm much the same way. That's interesting. Yeah.
It's also funny because it's like that's what I do with my synths. I will actually be happy that the modular rig is what's forcing me to like create patches. It's like like I can't be bothered with it with the synthesizers, which I don't understand.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's not like I can't do that, but it's like I don't like doing like I've done sound design with the Hydrasynth a little bit,
Hmm.
but it's like I that's not why I if I'm creating compositions, that's not the source of things. It's like I don't get love by creating my own patch. I get love from being like, how can I make all these things blend together? Like, how do I make it
Nice.
sound like everything builds, as like you would hear going to an orchestra or something. But the modular gives me more like range because here, okay, this is new to me. No one's expecting me to be good at this. So I'm like, well, now I have to build stuff. It doesn't come preset. I don't get
Yeah,
it like, oh, here's this cello sound that comes out of nowhere. It's like, no, you have to make that happen. So
yeah, yeah.
it's nice to do that, but for like regular stuff, it's just like take the sounds that I like that have already been made and then make it my own in the sense of how do they play well together.
And there is that spectrum. Because on the one side of the spectrum, on the one end of the spectrum, you've got the pure modular folks, and the people that prefer the pure modular. On the other end of the spectrum, you've got probably DJs, but one step back from that is probably loop-based artists in Ableton and stuff like that, where everything is like literally pre-built, and they're dropping and doing that, and it's not necessarily something they're even creating from scratch, even those loops. And then you have that entire spectrum in there. And it's been interesting too as the devices themselves have become more like miniature DAWs, in and of themselves,
Yep.
you know. So I have, in my 1 year on Twitch, the amount of gatekeeping that I've gotten from certain sides of the spectrum has been surprising to me, and I don't give a shit about it myself. I'm like, I don't yuck somebody's yum, so I don't care if somebody thinks that what I'm doing is whatever. But it has been fascinating to me, this like turf war, and I feel like it's this need to gatekeep and to be tribal about it. Like ours is better because I'm doing this, if that makes sense. And I've tried to avoid those spaces actively. I actively avoid those spaces now. That's what I love about GSG. It's such a inclusive community, and everybody is just kind of synth adjacent. It's cool. Just do your thing. I
Right.
like that about GSG a lot.
The way it should be, honestly.
Yeah, like who the hell has got like life is way too short. There's so much music to be made. Let's make it. Okay, so that's your inspiration, your songwriting process. That's really kind of interesting. Now, in terms of the live and the visuals you're doing there, when you're doing your live shows, um, do you get a lot of collaboration with the visual artists that are creating the visuals for your shows? If it's not you, or if it's somebody else doing it for you, or is it kind of like you're sending them a taste, or is it somebody you know, or are you sending them a taste of what you do, and they kind of build to that?
It varies. With so some types of performances, like there won't be visuals at all, or they'll just be kind of a blanket whatever is being used by like the venue.
Hmm.
But a lot of the synth shows that happen around this area, they will usually try to get one or two visual artists on the show, and there's definitely like a good supply of people around this area. Like I've gotten like so that's kind of like one of the nice things about like this. It's not just the synth community. There's been like a nice blend of both the synth community and the visual artist community, and
Hmm.
like you'll end up seeing a lot of really good visual artists like be able to do stuff on synth shows. And sometimes sometimes they'll ask for like a sample of your music. So for like the Museum of Science performance I did last year,
Was that the
it's like
planetarium one?
yep, that was the planetarium one. I worked with the visual
Yeah,
artist to be like, here's the type of music I'm planning to do. I gave him like, kind of like shortened versions of each so he kind of get a sense of
nice.
where I was going with the flow of the different songs. And so using that and good ones that are like working like that detailed will like ask you, what do you want to see? What do you not want to see? What, because they want to like make sure whatever's showing up there isn't maybe a negative representation of you,
Mm-hmm.
because some people will just blanket do whatever visuals, but it's like it might not be the right fit for the person who's doing the music. So I really love when people like ask like, what kind of vibe do you want? Do you want any of your own branding included in this? Like I did one thing where like someone incorporated a bunch of Totoro stuff, and he does visual art through like he has a like visual modules in his modular rig, and he would like run stuff and have like elements of No Face and Totoro actually like
Oh,
glitch on the screen.
that's
It was
cool.
really cool. So that's what I'm saying. So sometimes some people like are really invested and like will work very detailed with you to like kind of create that vibe. And there's others who are just like they do their own stuff, but they make it, I don't want to say generic, but like they make it so that way it'll fit with the vibe of the show. So if it's an ambient thing, they're going to have like here's flowers floating, here's like breezes through trees, like things that can kind of like that look really cool but will fit with most types of ambient music or something like that. But I think that's what a lot of synth shows that are not like kind of like focused primarily on like we're just having techno night in this venue, like where the people are just like focused on like if it's going to be like a dancing vibe, because like techno usually will be like people are dancing in the club,
Right.
like, and it's like they're not even paying attention to the artist, or they might, but they're focused on dancing and having a good time. Other kinds of things, so like a lot of the like the ambient performances that have been starting to pop up over the past year, they've been having really good ideas of having visual artists that can do it in venues that make sense. So that way, I've played in churches and artist lofts where the visuals will actually go on the ceiling or go
Nice.
behind the
Yeah.
walls.
Yeah.
Like ways to make it so it's like a full experience, and just like you hear the music around you, but you can also just get absorbed by all the artistry. And I think having that immersiveness like builds all of those communities that much more so. So I love when that kind of stuff happens. It's a
Yeah,
cool
that makes
experience.
it something more than just something you can see on the screen. It's like having it be much more of an experience. Like I feel like we're only just now because of because of the pandemic and because all of us living on screens now, living remotely because of Zoom and all of that, people have become a lot more acclimated to this type of communication. But likewise, people have become a lot more acclimated to virtual concerts, virtual plays, like watching when Hamilton came out on Disney Plus. People were like, "Oh
Right.
my God," like that kind of stuff. So now it definitely people are so much more accepting of that, which is also an opportunity for us virtual streamers, by the way. But it's
Mm-hmm.
also an opportunity then for the in-person things to level up to a certain extent. And I find it really interesting too, the collaborative visual versus the music versus not. And again, like you said, not to pass judgment on the not generic, but let's say cross applicable or just like the stuff that is just more toward the event rather than the individual artists that are performing at the event. Let's put it that way. Versus the collaborative visual artists. I always love working with another artist, especially not a musician, because they in some ways may show me a truth about the music that I had may not have not had have considered, like a different interpretation that I might not
Oh
have even
yeah,
thought of. That's always interesting.
definitely. Agreed. I wouldn't have settled on this piece, but they're showing this element that I didn't think stood out in
Yeah,
this
yeah,
song or something, but it pairs so well with like here's this captured thing, like, oh, this is building a scene in my brain that I wouldn't have even thought of, but it totally fits. Yeah, it's just creating a moment that like sometimes I don't think my music alone would do, but I'm
hmm
like, oh, okay, I see this vision. It's like I could like this could be a movie or something that I would watch. It's really neat.
yeah. And having had, because sometimes I improvise lyrics, sometimes well, sometimes not, usually not. And I'm improvising lyrics and having friends and or acquaintances say, "Hey, that song, blah blah blah," what they think it's about, and I'm like, "That's really interesting that that's what you got out of it." That's always,
Hmm.
I mean, because as a songwriter, you get that, but when I'm improvising, just kind of off the dome and getting like the same kind of a thing, what are you getting out of it? But I guess that's kind of the point is that connection. Like, how can an artist connect with the people, and how can people connect with the artist? Is like, what do you get out of it? And if they're getting something out of it, then I guess we're kind of doing our jobs.
Yeah.
Nice. All right. So, what's next for the Totes? Do you have anything going on in your life right now? Like, yeah, any big events coming up? Any public stuff?
Um.
Because I still need to get up to Boston and see one of these. By the way,
Oh,
yeah,
actually,
yeah,
there might be something I could tell you. So, it, so as I said, sometimes it's hard. Like, I mean, in any city, it's like it's hard to get like small venues to be able to open themselves up to
of course.
small synth artists and like
Hmm.
have them do their thing and like does this make money or da 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 da. We had like an event that was happening like once a month this club in Central Square that was like once a month like synth music, and it was great, but like the club admitted that we're not making enough money to justify this going on, so they stopped that event. In Providence, there was this one little club that more so a bar that was owned by this owner who like wanted to emphasize synth music. And
Mm-hmm.
so like every night actually had a synth performer
Oh
or
my gosh.
in that place. And it
Wow.
was a really cool idea. Unfortunately, that bar got sold to a different owner who's planning to do a different thing with it. But apparently there's like this new venue kind of art like location that just recently, I don't know if they like redid themselves. I think the place is called Inspiria.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and they have interest in doing more synth things. So a couple of my friends who are out in like the Providence, Rhode Island area are actually doing kind of a full day synth event in Providence in, I think, towards end of June. I forget what the date is.
So like a synthathon, or
pretty
perhaps
much,
a
yeah.
synthon. No, I'm just
Yeah, and I think like performances will be like what tends to happen around here in general is like usually synth performances are like 20 to 30 minutes long.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like they're going to have a whole bunch of different artists, both like modular and synth related, and it's going to be at this club. And so it's like if you've ever wanted to go do a day trip to Providence, Rhode Island, this would be a really cool thing. There, I think the event's called Crosswired Fest. And it's like, again, it's happening in June, so I can post stuff. I'll probably post stuff in both my Discord and the GSG Discord, so like people who are around that area might be able to like come up for the day and catch that. So that's my next big performance. I'm weird in the sense of like I don't actively look for these things. I'm very fortunate enough that people, reach out and be like, "Hey, do you want to do this thing?" It's like I don't do this for money. I'm happy when people give me money, but it's just,
of course, yeah.
I always find these things as opportunities to grow, because there's a difference between streaming here and like having to be on the fly in the moment of people and have to, fix sound design and whatever in the moment. So like I always look at these as opportunities. If I did a live thing once a quarter, I'd be perfectly fine.
You're good with that? You're okay?
I don't need to do like, I think last year I weirdly like had something just about every single month.
You did.
Like,
and I thought that was kind of the new normal. I thought that was
amazing.
really, really cool. Yeah, yeah.
But I don't need that.
But it's probably a little stressful.
Of work and tiring.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, it's like, so my whole brain is like, if I can do something, in person once a quarter, awesome. If I get more, great. If I don't, it doesn't matter, because I just like going to like the local monthly meetups and doing something for 5 minutes and just building community that way. Like that is wonderful. So it's, I think it's right now, it's just, I'm trying to come to a balance of work life, music life, and start bringing swords back in balance now that I can move around again. So trying to find
S-words,
all of the timing work out, and that's a process.
And I find, the other thing that I always find interesting, because you had done in the GSG talks, you had done one about building your community, building your your community, go out and building your tribe, like going out there and doing that. A sword life, that adjacent to thug life. Yes, Scott. Absolutely, nailed it.
Why not?
Yeah, why not? But it's interesting that you seem to bring a very similar philosophy to your IRL community building as you do to your online community building. It's kind of a glimpse into your guiding principles as a networker. And I think we talked about this before, but remind me, do you consider yourself a networker and extroverted, or is it something you have to work at?
So it's funny because I'm a social introvert. I'm purely an introvert. I'm just good that when I need to be on point to talk about something or connect with people. I hate networking, especially, I should say, specifically, I hate work networking.
Oh, yeah.
I work in banking. That alone should give you a sign that it's better for me because I work in compliance. So networking and compliance, like we don't have sales agendas. We don't have like competition. So it's a little bit easier to network with other professionals, but basically everyone hates our job, so it's like we all commiserate together. But in general, like networking like is a skill set, and it's like I don't like forced networking. I don't like the kind of networking where like you need to be able to sell your product and make this to hit this quota, this quota, and I've never been about that. I've been that terrible person where, like, working in like a department store and you have to sell like the credit cards. And I would always get marks in my reviews. You don't sell enough credit cards. I'm like, have you seen the interest rate on those things? I'm not selling those. It's so dumb.
It's bad for the customer. I want to have a loyal customer instead. I'm going to tell them to not buy it here. I'll tell them to go buy it someplace where it's cheaper. You know, like that.
I am not that person. I'm not sales oriented. So never hire me for those things. Like I will just tell you right where this can't happen. But what I am good about is that, again, I think a lot of this is like, you want more people to be interested in your stuff. You also have to show an interest in their stuff. Like, you don't necessarily have to love everything something does, but you have to appreciate the amount of work, ethic, like the amount of efforts that someone puts into, like, you know, produce their music, to share their music, because it's scary and people are judgmental, and like people like will, you know, drag you down and make it so you no longer enjoy that stuff. So for me, it's like, the way you really build community is like, you take an interest in other people's things. This is why I love those monthly meetups, because it's like, I get to see everyone for 5 minutes sharing their craft. It's like, it could be noise, it could be techno, it could be down tempo, it could be drones. It doesn't matter. It's like, it's someone sharing a love of art and being brave and bold enough to do it. And I mean, again, I'm probably fortunate that I like most genres of music. So I find everyone has something really fascinating, and I'll go up to them afterwards because there's room to have that conversation and be like, I really love this piece. It's exactly what Mitchell said beforehand in terms of doing clips of people's thing and sharing.
Yeah, the clipping culture. Hashtag clip culture. That's going to be a big, that's a great idea.
That's what I do in live things. This is why I often will do in sitting in people's streams and just be like, I really liked this. Like this. Really,
you're really good about that.
I see the growth that you did. It's like, you know, 2 months ago, I could see that, you know, doing drums to your thing was like limiting. And now I'm like, wow, you've come so far at this, because the positive reinforcement and motivation is what kind of brings us all together. And like, that's how you network. You network in that sense. And I think that's more meaningful, because I can be really excited about talking about that. But if like someone's just asking for boring stuff, I'm just going to be like in a corner and be like, smile and nod.
No, I'm with you on that. I you know, there's a smirking irony that permeated our culture for such a long time, that being earnest. It wasn't you that told me that said this to me. It was somebody else. I don't remember who it was. Somebody else said it to me last year, like around NobCon. They're like, yeah, when you first started coming on Twitch and coming into people's streams and stuff, I was like, what the hell is this guy's problem? Because I was so earnest, you know, and I was just like, I was trying something new in my life, to not be fucking miserable, you know. I was trying something new to like not be critical. I was trying something new to be like, you know what, I like this person, I like this music, and to tell them that I liked it. And it was seriously like, it was one of the shrimpies, I don't remember who it was, that was like, yeah, when you first came around, I was like, this guy, what's the deal with this? This guy can't be like, he's got something's going on, he's got an agenda. Like, people didn't trust me. And I was like, nah, man. And like, what's your deal? Like, what's your deal? Like that type of a thing. And I was like, no, but I'm with you that it's important to tell people, not just, you know, not your friends and your loved ones, why they're important to you, but also just like somebody to be like, you know what, I like that because. And it's so hard out there for all of us every day. There's so many things that are so challenging, and we're all just trying to go and create and connect, and letting people know that the connection happened is so imperative. The time has flown by. Amazing. We need to, you know, we should have been doing that on everyone that we had here. And I'm going to be dropping my my redeems down to like 2, I think, for my actual music streams, but there we go. I want to thank you, TotoRobyn, for being on. Thank you so much for being a friend. Thank you so much for being so encouraging. My first year on Twitch, it's been truly, my life has been made the better for having you and other GSD awesome folks in it, and I can't thank you enough for that. The hard time, and it's been great.
You're welcome. I mean, this is what everyone's done for me. That's the whole paying it forward in this community. It's like, people could have said what the F and just not like bothered me, and it would have been understandable. But that's the point, is like, you encourage somebody, they will get better. It's like, and then it's like being able to see someone new come into like the streaming world and being like, let's make sure that this is something that someone else wants to do. So like, you've got well more talent than me. It's like I love the music that you do.
Well,
It's
thank
like
you. I
it's like
appreciate
I get inspired by all the different genres and explorations you do. So it's like I should be thanking you for, it's not always easy to commit to streaming. It's not always easy to make the time, but you do it. And, whether you're doing it like 3 times a week or you're doing it once a month, when you're there and you're on, it's amazing. And so we should be thanking you for doing that.
Well,
So
or we
I'm
should all
happy
thank
you've
each
been doing
other
this
because
for a
that's
year.
the point of our community is that we're all inspiring each other, and a rising tide lifts all boats, and all of those things. Yeah. Well, this was awesome. Thank you so much, so much.
Thank
All
you.
right, enjoy the rest of your day. I will release you from this burden.
All right.
You know, like,
Everyone. It was such a burden. OMG.
I know, right? All
No,
right,
it's been
take
a
care.
blast. Thank you.
Bye.